The Recruit by Bryce Walton. This story appeared in Worlds of If Science Fiction, July 1962. Extensive research by Project Gutenberg at Gutenberg.org did not uncover any evidence that the copyright on this was renewed. Worlds of If Science Fiction, July 1962. Extensive research by Project Gutenberg at Gutenberg.org did not uncover any evidence that the copyright on this was renewed. Wayne, unseen, sneered ears. The old man with his thick neck, thick cigar, evening highball, pot gut, and bald head without a brain in it. His slim mother with nervously polite smiles and voice fluttering, assuring the old man by her frailty that he was big in the world. They were squareheads, one and all, marking moron time in a gray dream. Manny was glad to break out. The old man said, "He'll be okay. Let him alone."
"But he won't eat. Just lies there all the time."
"Hell," the old man said. 16's a bad time. 16's a bad time. School over, waiting for the draft and all. He's in between. It's rough."
Mother clasped her forearms and shook her head once, slowly.
"We've got to let him go, Eva. It's a dangerous time. You gotta remember about all these dangerous repressed impulses piling up with nowhere to go, like they say. You read the books."
"But he's unhappy."
"Are we specialists? That's the youth board's headache, ain't it? What do we know about adolescent trauma and like that? Now get dressed or we'll be late."
Wayne watched the ritual, grinning. He listened to their purposeless noises, their blabbing and yakking as if they had something to say. Blab blab about the same old bones and end up chewing them in the same old ways. Then they began all over again. A freak sideshow all the way to nowhere. Heads going around either unconscious or with eyes looking dead from the millennium in the office waiting to retire into limbo. How come he'd been stuck with parental images like that? One thing. When he was jockeying a rocket to Mars, or maybe firing the pants off Asiatic Reds in some steamy gun, he'd forget his punky origins in TV land. But the old man was right on for once about the dangerous repressed impulses. Wayne had heard about it often enough. Anyway, there was no doubt about it when every move he made was a restrained explosion. So he'd waited in his room, and it wasn't easy sweating it out alone, waiting for the breakout call from HQ.
"Well, dear, if you say so," Mother said, with the old resigned sigh that must make the old man feel like Superman with a beer belly.
And looked up. "Relax," Wayne said. "You're not going anywhere tonight."
"What, son?"
his old man said uneasily.
"Sure we are. We're going to the movies."
He could feel them watching him, waiting, and yet he still didn't answer. Somewhere out in the suburban grayness, a dog barked, then was silent. "Okay, go," Wayne said. "If you want to walk. I'm taking the family bolt bucket."
"But we promised the Clemens, dear," his mother said.
"Hell," Wayne said, grinning straight into the old man. He saw the old man's Adam apple move.
"Oh, my dear boy,"
Mother cried out. "So give me the keys," Wayne said. The old man handed the keys over. His understanding smile was strained, and fear flicked in his sagging eyes.
"Do be careful, dear,"
his mother's sagging eyes.
"Do be careful, dear,"
his mother said. She ran toward him as he laughed and shut the door on her. He was still laughing as he whooped the olds between the pale dead glow of houses and roared up the ramp onto the freeway. Ahead was the promising glitter of a night, and his eyes sailed the glaring wonders of escape. He burned off some rubber, finding a slot in the park lot. He strode under a sign reading Public Youth Center number 947 and walked casually to the reception desk, where a thin man with sergeant stripes and a pansy haircut looked out of a pile of paperwork. "Where you think you're going, my pretty lad?" Wayne grinned down. "Higher, I hope, than a typewriter jockey." "Well," the sergeant said, "how tough we are this evening. You have a pass, killer?" "Wayne Seaton, draft call." "Wayne Seaton, draft call." "Oh." The sergeant checked his name off a roster and nodded. He wrote on a slip of paper, handed the pass to Wayne. "Go to the armory and check out whatever your lusting little heart desires. Then report to Captain Jack, room 307. "Thanks, Sarge, dear," Wayne said, and took the elevator up to the armory. A tired fat corporal with a naked head blinked up at tall Wayne. Finally he said, "So make up your mind, bud. Think you're the only kid breaking out tonight?" "Hold your teeth, Pop," Wayne said, coolly, slowly lighting a cigarette. "I've decided." The corporal's little eyes studied Wayne with malicious amusement. "Take it from a vet, bud. Sooner you go, the better. It's a big city and you're starting late. You can get a cat, not a mouse, and some babes are clever hellcats in a dark alley." "Yes," Wayne said. "A corporal with no hair and still a counterboy. I'm impressed. I'm all ears, Dad." The corporal sighed wearily. "You can get that balloon head ventilated, bud, and good." Wayne's mouth twitched. He leaned across the counter toward the shelves and racks of weapons. "I'll remember that crack when I get my commission." He blew smoke in the corporal's face. "Bring me a Smith & Wesson .38, shoulder holster with a spring clip, and throw in a Skelly switchblade for kicks, the 6-inch disguised job with the double springs." The corporal disguised in a leather comb case. He checked them on a receipt ledger while Wayne examined the weapons, broke open the revolver, twirled the cylinder, and pushed cartridges into the waiting chamber. He slipped the knife from the comb case, flicked open the blade, and stared at its gleam in the buttery light as his mouth went dry, and the refracted incandescence of it trickled on his brain like melted ice, exciting and scary. He removed his leather jacket. He slung the holster under his left armpit and tested the spring clip on and the switchblade case in his pocket. He walked toward the elevator and didn't look back as the corporal said, "Good luck, Tiger." Captain Jack moved massively. The big stone-walled office, alive with stuffed lion and tiger and gun racks, seemed to grow smaller. Captain Jack crossed black-booted legs and whacked a cane at the floor. It had a head shaped like a grinning bear. Wayne felt the assured smile die on his face to shrink him. If he didn't watch himself, he'd begin feeling like a pea among bowling balls. Contemptuously amused little eyes glittered at Wayne from a shaggy head, shoulders hunched like stuffed sea bags.
"Wayne Seaton,"
said Captain Jack, as if he were discussing something in a bug collection.
Well, you're really fired up, aren't you? Really going out to eat 'em, right, punk?"
"Yes, sir," Wayne said. He ran wet hands down the sides of his chinos. His legs seemed sheathed in lead as he bit inwardly at shrinking fear the way a dog snaps at a wound. "You big overblown son," he thought. "I'll show you but good who is a punk." They made a guy wait and sweat until he screamed. They kept a guy on the fire until desire leaped in him, ran and roared until his brain was filled with it. But that wasn't enough. If this muscle-bound creep was such a big boy, what was he doing holding down a desk?
"Well, this is it, punk. You go the distance or start a butterfly collection."
The cane darted up, a blade from the end, and stopped an inch from Wayne's nose. He jerked up a shaky hand involuntarily and clamped a knuckle-ridged gag to his gasping mouth.
Captain Jack chuckled. "All right, Superboy,"
He handed Wayne his pass card. "Curfew's off. 6 hours to make out." "Yes, sir." "Your beast is primed and waiting at the Four Aces Club on the west side. Know where that is, punk?" "No, sir, but I'll find it fast." "Sure you will, punk," smiled Captain Jack. "She'll be wearing yellow slacks and a red shirt. Black hair. Wearing yellow slacks and a red shirt. Black hair. A cute trick. She's with a hefty psycho who eats punks for breakfast. He's butchered 5 people. They're both on top of the undesirable list, Seaton. They got to go, and they're your key to the stars." "Yes, sir," Wayne said. "So run along and make out, punk," grinned Captain Jack. A cop car stopped Wayne as he started over the bridge, out of bright, respectable neon, into the murky West Side slum over the river. Wayne waved the pass card, signed by Cap Jack, under the cop's quivering nose. The cop shivered and stepped back and waved him on. The olds roared over the bridge as the night's rain blew away. The air through the open window was chill and damp coming from Slumville, but Wayne felt a cold that wasn't of the night or rat's warren of the inferiors. Lights turned pale, secretive and sparse. The uncared-for streets became rough with pitted potholes, narrow and winding and humid with wet, unpleasant smells. Wayne's fearful exhilaration increased as he cruised with bated breath. Through the dark mazes of streets and rickety tenements, crawling with the shadows of mysterious promise. He found the alley, dark, a gloom-dripping tunnel. He drove cautiously into it and rolled along, while he spotted the sick-looking dab of neon, wanly sparkling. Four Aces Club. He parked across the alley. He got out and stood in the shadows, digging the sultry beat of a combo, the wild pulse of drums and spinning brass filtering through the windows painted black. He breathed deep, started over, ducked back. A stew bum weaved out of a bank of garbage cans, humming to himself, pulling at a rain-soaked shirt clinging to a pale stick body. He reminded Wayne of a slim grub balanced on one end. The stew bum stumbled. His bearded face in dim breaking moonlight had a dirty greenish tinge as he sensed Wayne there. He turned in a grotesque, uncoordinated jiggling, and his eyes were in doom. "I gotta hide, kid. They're on me." Wayne's chest rose and his hands curled. The bum's fingers drew at the air like white talons. "Help me, kid." He turned with a scratchy cry and retreated before the sudden blast of the cad rushed past Wayne, and he felt the engine-hot fumes against his legs. Tires squealed. The cad stopped, and a teener in a black jacket jumped out and crouched as he began stalking the old rummy. "This is him! This is him, all right!" the teener yelled, and one hand came up swinging a baseball bat. A head bobbed out of the cad window and giggled. The fumble-footed rummy turned to run and plopped on wet pavement. The teener moved in, while a faint odor of burnt rubber hovered in the air as the cad cruised in a slow follow-up. Wayne's breath quickened as he watched, feeling somehow blank wonder at finding himself there, free and breaking out at last with no curfew and no law but his own. He felt as though he couldn't stop anything. Living seemed useless until something dropped off or blew to hell like a hot light bulb. He held his breath, waiting. His body was tensed and rigid as he moved in spirit with the hunting teener, an omniscient shadow with a hunting license and a ghetto jungle 20 miles deep. The crawling stew bum screamed as the baseball bat whacked. The teener laughed. Wayne wanted to shout. He opened his mouth, but the yell clogged up somewhere, so that he remained soundless yet with his mouth still open, as he heard the payoff thuds where the useless wino curled up with stick arms over his roomies. The teener laughed, tossed the bat away, and began jumping up and down with his hobnailed mail-order Air Force boots. Then he ran into the cad. A hooch bottle soared out, made a brittle tink-tink of falling glass.
"Go, man!"
The cad whooshed by.
"Go, man!"
The cad whooshed by. It made a sort of hollow sucking noise as it bounced over the old man twice. Then the fin lights diminished like bright wind-blown sparks. Wayne walked over and sneered down at the human garbage, lying in scummed rain pools. The smell of raw violence, the scent of blood, made his heart thump like a trapped rubber ball in a cage. He hurried into the Four Aces, drawn by an exhilarating vision, and pursued by the hollow, haunting fears of his own desires. He walked through the woods and stood until his eyes learned the dark. He spotted her red shirt and yellow legs over in the corner, above a murky lighted table. He walked toward her, watching her little subhuman pixie face lift. The eyes widened with exciting terror. The eyes widened with exciting terror, turned even paler behind a red slash of sensuous mouth. Briefed and waiting, primed and eager for running, she recognized her pursuer at once. He sat at a table near her, watching her squirm. She sat in that slightly baffled, fearful and uncomprehending attitude of being motionless, as though they were all actors performing in a weirdo drama being staged in that smoky, thick-aired dive. Wayne smiled with wry superiority at the red-headed psycho in a dirty t-shirt, a big bruiser with a gorilla face. He was tussling his mouse heavy.
"What's yours, teener?"
the slug-faced waiter asked.
"Bring me a crusher, Buddy-Roo."
"Sure, teener." Red nuzzled the mouse's neck and made drooly noises. Wayne watched and fed on the promising terror and helplessness of her hunted face. She sat rigid, eyes fixed on Wayne like balls of frozen glass. Red looked up and stared straight at Wayne with eyes like black buttons embedded in the wax-like skin of his face. Then he grinned all on one side. One huge hand scratched across the wet tabletop like a furious cat's. Turned the challenging move, but felt a nervous twitch jerk at his lips. A numbness covered his brain like a film as he concentrated on staring down Red the Psycho. But Red kept looking, his eyes bright but dead. Then he began struggling it up again with the scared little mouse. The waiter sat the crusher down. Wayne signed a chit. Tonight he was in the pay of the state.
"What else, teener?"
"One thing. Fade."
"Sure, teener."
The waiter's breathy words dripping like syrup. Wayne drank. Liquored heat dripped into his stomach. Fire tickled his veins, became hot wire twisting in his head. He drank again and forced out a shaky breath. The jazz beat, bass moaned. Drum pulse, stabbing trumpet raped the air. Tension mounted as Wayne watched her pale throat convulsing, the white eyelids fluttering. Red fingered at her legs and salivated at her throat, glancing now and then at Wayne, baiting him good.
"Okay, you creep,"
Wayne said. He stood up and started through the haze. The psycho leaped and a table crashed. Wayne's .38 dropped from its spring-clip holster and the blast filled the room. The psycho screamed and stumbled toward the door, holding something in. The mouse darted by, eluding Wayne's grasp, and was out the door. Wayne went out after her in a laughing frenzy of release. He felt the cold, strange breath of moist air on his sweating skin as he sprinted down the alley into a wind full of blowing shadows, jumping, crawling, running with the life-or-death animation of a wild deer. Up and down alleys, a rat's maze, a rabbit run, across vacant lots, through shattered tenement ruins, over a fence. There she was, sliding down a brick chute. He gained, he moved up, his labored breath pumped more fire, and her scream was a rejuvenation hypo in his blood. She quivered above him on the stoop, panting, her eyes afire with terror. "You baby," Wayne gasped. "I gotcha." She backed into darkness, up there against the sagging tenement wall, her arms out and poised like crippled wings. Wayne crept up. She gave a squeaking sob, turned, ran. Wayne leaped into gloom. Wood cracked. He clambered over rotten lumber. The doorway sagged, and he hesitated in the musty dark. A few feet away was the sound of loose trickling plaster, a whimpering whine. "No use running," Wayne said. "No use running," Wayne said. "Go loose. Give, baby. Give now." She scurried up sagging stairs. Wayne laughed and dug up after her, feeling his way through the debris. Dim moonlight filtered through a sagging stairway from a shattered shadow floated ahead. He started up. The entire stairs structure canted sickeningly. A railing ripped, and he nearly went with it back down to the first floor. He heard a scream as rotten boards crumbled and dust exploded from cracks. A rat ran past Wayne and fell into space. He burst into the third-floor hallway and saw her half falling through a door under the jagged skylight. Wayne took his time. He knew how she felt, waiting in there, listening to his creeping, implacable footfalls. Then he door. Dust and stench, filth so awful it made nothing of the dust. In the corner he saw something hardly to be called a bed, more like a nest, a dirty, lumpy pile of torn mattress, felt, excelsior, shredded newspapers, and rags. It seemed to crawl a little under the moon-streaming skylight. She crouched in the corner, panting. He took his time moving in. He snickered as he flashed the switchblade and circled it like a serpent's tongue. He watched what was left of her nerves go to pieces like rotten cloth. "Do it quick, Hunter," she whispered. "Please do it quick." "What's that, baby?" "I'm tired of running. Kill me first, beat me after. They won't know the difference." "I'm gonna bruise and beat." "Kill me first," she begged. "I don't want." She began to cry. She cried right up in his face, her wide eyes unblinking and her mouth open. "You got bad blood, baby," he snarled. He laughed, but it didn't sound like him, and something was up. "Bad, I know. So get it over with, please. Hurry, hurry." She was small and white and quivering. She moaned but kept staring up at him. He ripped off his rivet-studded belt and swung once, then groaned and shuffled away from her, He kept backing toward the door. She crawled after him, begging and clutching with both arms as she wriggled forward on her knees. "Don't run! Please! Kill me! It'll be someone else if you don't! Oh, God, I'm so tired waiting and running!" he said, and sickness soured in his throat. "Please!" "I can't! I can't!" He turned and ran blindly, half fell down the cracking stairs. Dr. Burns, head of the readjustment staff at the youth center, studied Wayne with abstract. "Enjoyed the hunt, Seaton? You got your kicks?" "Yes, sir." "But you couldn't execute them." "No, sir.
They're undesirables, incurables. You know that, Seaton.
Yes, sir.
The psycho you only wounded, he's a 5-times murderer. And that girl you only wounded, he's a 5-times murderer. And that girl killed her father when she was 12. You realize there's nothing can be done for them, that they have to be executed.
I know.
Too bad, the doctor said.
We all have aggressive impulses, primitive needs that must be. There's murder in all of us, Seaton. The impulse shouldn't be denied or suppressed, but educated. The state used to kill them. Isn't it better all round, Seaton, for us to do it as part of growing up? What was the matter, Seaton?
I felt sorry for her.
And say about it?
Yes, sir.
The doctor pressed a buzzer. 2 men in white coats entered.
You should have got it out of your system, Seaton, but now it's still in there. I can't turn you out and have it erupt later and maybe shed clean innocent blood, can I?
No, sir, Wayne mumbled. He didn't look up.
I'm sorry I punked out.
Give him the treatment, the doctor said wearily, and send him back to his mother.
Wayne nodded, and they led him away. His mind screamed still to split open